Excellent, thank you. And look forward to hearing from my good friend and colleague from just a little bit north of here in the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania. Mr. Meuser, please. And yield you as much time as you may consume.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my good friend, the Vice Chair of our conference, for his leadership on these important issues. Mr. Speaker, Mark Twain once said that loyalty to the country always, loyalty to the government when it is deserved. From Joe Biden's self-induced crisis at our southern border to the repeated assault on American energy to foreign policy blunders, this administration's policies have been a disaster for our country. It seems every decision coming from this White House, from a national security standpoint and an economic standpoint, make the United States weaker and more vulnerable, both here and abroad. Even the latest LNG export pause is of great concern to our European Union allies who stopped purchasing natural gas from Russia because as they invaded the Ukraine and are now counting on the United States. They are rattled by this White House's so-called pause. The whole country now knows that we, the United States of America, are allowing a record number of potential threats into our country at our southern border, including deadly drugs, terrorists, human trafficking, and crime, on top of the nearly 10 million persons here illegally who have crossed the border under Joe Biden's watch. 361 individuals were on the terror watch list. How many were there under the previous administration? Under the Trump administration over a 4-year period? 11. So why has there been a 3,000% increase in terrorists crossings because our border? Is it because our enemies know that this is a good time to take advantage of the United States of America? But the threats aren't just coming from Central or South America, or the Middle East for that matter. The threats are coming from all over the world. Customs and Border Patrol Protection says they've encountered illegal immigrants from 120 different countries, which is deeply troubling given the geopolitical conflicts created around the world in the last 3 years. Even 60 Minutes expressed concern that 37,000 Chinese nationals crossed our border illegally last year, 50 times more than the previous 2 years. And what does the Biden White House propose to solve the crisis? A symbolism of a policy well over substance, really a do-nothing, politically motivated bill that fails to include re-implementation of the Trump administration's Remain in Mexico policy. Per the Customs and Border Patrol, this is the most crucial piece to solving the border catastrophe. If we don't require illegal migrants to claim asylum in the first safe country they enter, we will simply never solve this crisis. This is why we're not favorable to the Senate bill, because they will just keep on coming illegally. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to say, the Biden administration really doesn't seem to care about protecting the interests of the United States. They made that clear by failing to enforce the laws that exist, which the Trump White House used to secure the border, the laws that already exist. From an economic standpoint, the Biden White House made a surprising and inexplicable decision to pause American LNG exports. This misguided policy failure will only drive our allies, as stated, into the arms of our adversaries, supporting Russia's economy. This White House can be counted on for one thing, and that is to blame others for the crises they create. You know, Harry Truman was known for his saying, which sat atop his desk, "The buck stops here." The name placard sitting in this Oval Office should be, "Pass the buck." That's why Republicans are taking decisive action to hold the Biden administration accountable. We impeached Secretary Mayorkas just yesterday for his failure to enforce our border laws and for the blatant dereliction of duty and violation of his oath of office that has created grave dangers for our country. And tomorrow, we will pass the Unlocking Our Domestic LNG Potential Act to repeal the ill-conceived, ideologically guided restrictions on the export and import of natural gas. Republicans, Mr. Speaker, will continue to fight for American energy, American national security, the American economy, and the American people, because this administration simply will not. I yield back.
Thank you to the gentleman from the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania. I saw an interview this weekend from Secretary Mayorkas, actually, when he talked about, there's almost an admission that Remain in Mexico policy is effective. And many on the left will say it is an effective way to control our border. It doesn't feel like there's debate on that. What he said was, well, it could be challenged in the courts. Folks, every single executive action can be challenged in the courts. That is unfortunately where we are at in our nation right now, in this ping-ponging situation from one administration to the other. Yes, Remain in Mexico policy may be challenged in a court situation, or somebody could run a lawsuit against this, and it could find its way to various levels within our judicial system, but it works. We saw that. We have evidence of that from the Trump and Pence administration on working with Mexico in a partnership to limit the amount of cartel activity that exists and that is killing people, that is trafficking people, that is creating a fentanyl crisis in every single community in this country. So yes, it might actually be challenged in the courts, but implement it. We know that it works, and we'll work through it. And if there was leadership, Democrats will admit that it's been effective. Well, take the leadership to tell Congress we should pass this into law. If you don't like every aspect of H.R. 2, there's one really important aspect of H.R. 2 that if we could agree on, we could pass legislatively, which you keep calling for. Even Secretary Mayorkas said, well, Congress needs to fix the problem. Okay? Well, encourage Democrats to vote in favor of a Remain in Mexico policy. It's got data. We've got data to show that it works. And this is what is the frustration is right in front of us, what we can do to fix some of the most acute issues at our border. It's beyond me that we can't look at a good policy, take data, and be able to re-implement it. And we'll continue to sound the alarm on this and call out the nature of why the Biden administration is so inept at doing this. And I assume that my good colleague here and friend from the great state of New York will highlight some of this as well as he gives his remarks. And sir, I offer you as much time as you may consume.